If you sleep on your back, your brain may be accumulating toxic waste every single night, and almost no doctor will ever tell you this during a routine appointment. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share with you in the next few minutes could be the most important thing you've ever heard about your brain. Not your heart, not your weight, your brain, and specifically, what happens to it while you sleep. My name is Dr. Vincent Halberg. I've spent over 2 decades studying the silent patterns of cognitive decline, the kind that doesn't announce itself loudly, but instead creeps in slowly, quietly, and by the time most people notice it, the damage has already been building for years. I've sat across from hundreds of patients over the years, intelligent people, active people, people who ate reasonably well, exercised occasionally, took their vitamins, and yet, one by one, they would describe the same thing to me. They'd forget a word mid-sentence. They'd walk into a room and have no idea why they went there. They'd lose their keys for the 3rd time that week. They'd miss an appointment they were certain they had written down, and almost every single one of them said the same thing to me. I guess it's just age, right, doctor? Let me ask you something right now, and I want you to be honest with yourself. Have you noticed your memory isn't quite what it used to be? Maybe it's subtle, a name you should know but can't retrieve, a conversation you swear you remember differently than the other person does, a moment of confusion that disappears quickly but leaves you slightly unsettled. If any of that sounds familiar, I need you to pay very close attention to what I'm about to tell you, because what most people believe about memory loss, including most of what you've likely been told, is fundamentally incomplete, and that incomplete understanding is costing people something they can never get back. Memory loss is not the root problem. It is a warning signal. It's your brain sending up a flare, trying to tell you that something deeper is going wrong beneath the surface. And the question you should be asking is not, why can't I remember things? The question you should be asking is, what is happening inside my brain right now that I cannot see? Here's where that sleep position comes in. And I want you to stay with me because this is going to connect everything. Your brain has a cleaning system. Most people have never heard of it because it was only confirmed by researchers relatively recently, and it hasn't made its way into mainstream medical conversations yet. It's called the glymphatic system, spelled G-L-Y-M-P-H-A-D-I-C, and it is one of the most remarkable and underappreciated structures in the entire human body. Think of it as your brain's overnight sanitation crew. While you sleep, this system activates and begins pumping cerebrospinal fluid through microscopic channels between your brain cells, flushing out the metabolic waste that accumulated during the day. Proteins that don't belong there, inflammatory byproducts, cellular debris, and most critically, a protein fragment called beta amyloid, which researchers have consistently found accumulated in the brains of people with Alzheimer's disease. This cleaning process is not optional. It is not a luxury. It is biological maintenance that your brain requires to function properly. And here's what almost no one is talking about. This system does not work equally well in all sleep positions. Researchers at Stony Brook University published findings showing that the lateral position, sleeping on your side, significantly enhances glymphatic transport compared to sleeping on your back or on your stomach. When you sleep on your back, the drainage efficiency of the system drops. The toxic proteins that should be flushed out overnight don't clear as effectively. They linger. They accumulate. Night after night. Year after year. Now I want you to pause and think about how you slept last night. And the night before. And the night before that. Because if you are a back sleeper, and roughly 40 to 50% of adults are, this has potentially been happening inside your brain for years without you knowing. Not because you did anything wrong, but because nobody told you. Nobody connected these dots for you. And the brain, unlike a sore muscle or a visible rash, gives you very little feedback in the moment. It doesn't hurt when it's struggling. It just quietly becomes less efficient. And you start to notice in small ways that are easy to dismiss, easy to explain away, easy to attribute to stress or tiredness or simply getting older. But here's the part that concerns me deeply as a physician. The beta amyloid protein I mentioned, the one that the glymphatic system is supposed clear, doesn't become a problem overnight. It accumulates across many years, sometimes decades, before any clinical symptoms of cognitive decline are obvious. which means by the time someone is formally diagnosed with memory problems, the accumulation process has often been underway for a very long time. This is the silence I've been talking about, the invisible progression, the slow narrowing of mental space that most people don't register until they're standing in the middle of their kitchen, wondering why they can't remember their daughter's phone number. And here is what I've seen that truly troubles me. People who notice the early signs, the occasional word-finding difficulty, the slight fog in the morning, the moments of repetition they catch themselves in, they notice these things and they wait. They think it'll get better. They assume it's a bad week. They tell themselves they just need more sleep or less stress. And some of them are right. But some of them are watching the early warnings of a process that only moves in one direction if nothing changes. I'm not telling you this to frighten you. I'm telling you this because you are watching this video, which means you are paying attention. You are someone who wants to understand what's happening. And that puts you in a position that many people never reach, the position of being able to do something about it. Now, I want to stop here for just a moment because I think something needs to be said directly. Many of the people watching this video right now are not here by accident. You've noticed something. Maybe you haven't said it out loud. Maybe you haven't even fully admitted it to yourself. But you've had the thought that your mind doesn't feel quite as sharp as it used to, that retrieving information takes a half-second longer than it should, that you've had to reread sentences you would have absorbed instantly 10 years ago, that feeling you're having, that low, quiet concern in the background, that is your brain asking for attention. And most people respond to it by waiting for it to pass, by hoping it's nothing, by telling themselves that everyone forgets things sometimes, which is true, but incomplete, because the difference between normal forgetfulness and early cognitive decline is not always dramatic. It's not a sudden cliff. It's a gradual slope. And the earlier you understand which one you're on, the more options you have. Here's what I want you to understand about neuroinflammation, the silent process that sits at the center of nearly all cognitive decline. Inflammation in the brain is not like inflammation in your knee after an injury, where you can feel the swelling and the heat and the pain. Neuroinflammation is invisible. It has no sensation you can identify. It is the chronic, low-grade activation of your brain's immune cells, called microglia. And when those cells stay activated for too long, when inflammatory signals keep firing when they shouldn't, they begin to damage the very neural connections they were meant to protect. The communication pathways between neurons start to degrade. The signals slow down. The brain becomes less efficient at retrieving, storing, and processing information. And that inefficiency is what you experience as forgetting, as fog, as the word that is right on the tip of your tongue, but simply will not come. What drives this neuroinflammation? Many things. Chronic stress, poor sleep, oxidative damage from a lifetime of metabolic activity, the accumulated burden of toxins that were never fully cleared. And yes, inefficient lymphatic drainage, night after night, allowing those inflammatory proteins persist and accumulate rather than being washed away as they should be. This is why the sleeping position question is not trivial. It is one piece of a much larger picture. A picture that shows a brain under silent pressure, doing its best to compensate, buying time, until it can't anymore. And by then, people are asking why they weren't warned earlier, why nobody connected the dots sooner. I'm connecting them now. For you, there is a growing body of evidence pointing to the role of specific natural compounds in supporting lymphatic function, reducing neuroinflammatory signals, and providing the brain with the antioxidant protection it needs to push back against this kind of silent deterioration. Not pharmaceuticals, not interventions with the kind of side effect profiles that require their own management. Natural compounds, some of them derived from plants and botanical sources, that have been studied for their ability to support the brain's own maintenance processes, to help the microglia return to their resting state rather than staying chronically activated, to protect the neurons that are still healthy from further oxidative damage, to support the communication between brain cells so that retrieval, focus, and clarity have a fighting chance. I cannot tell you this is a cure. I would never say that to you. But I can tell you that there's a meaningful difference between a brain that is receiving the support it needs and a brain that is not. And for the people who have begun giving their brain that kind of support, the ones who didn't wait, who took the early signals seriously, who acted while the window was still open. Many of them report a clarity they hadn't felt in years. 8 E's in finding words. A focus that returns. A mental presence that had quietly started to fade. If you want to know more about what that looks like, what specific support I'm referring to, the information is available below this video. In the description, I want you to look at it carefully. Read it thoroughly, because what's there is not a sales pitch. It's information. And information at this stage is the most valuable thing I can offer you. Let me tell you something that I think about often in my practice. There are 2 kinds of people who learn what you've been learning in this video. The first kind listens, feels a small wave of concern, tells themselves they'll look into it later, and then goes about their day. Life is busy. There are always more pressing things. And later becomes next week. And next week becomes next month. And at some point the thought just fades, filed somewhere in the back of the mind as something they meant to address. The second kind of person listens and recognizes that the brain doesn't wait for convenient timing, that the processes we've been talking about, the accumulation, the inflammation, the gradual degradation in neural efficiency, they don't pause while life gets less busy. They continue, quietly, consistently, and every day that passes without support is another day of that silent progression. I want to be precise with you about what the research shows about timing. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to adapt, to rebuild, to reorganize its connections, is not infinite. It is significantly greater in earlier stages of decline than in later ones. The brain that is beginning to struggle still has reserves, still a capacity to respond, still has neurons that are stressed but not lost. But that window is not permanent. And the people I have watched wait too long, the ones who kept attributing the fog to bad weeks and stress and age, they are the ones who have sat in front of me later and said, with a kind of quiet devastation, I wish I had paid attention sooner. I don't want that for you. I genuinely don't, because you are here watching this, which means you still have something to protect. Your independence, your clarity, the ability to be fully present with the people who matter to you, the ability to trust your own mind. The accumulation of toxic proteins we talk about, the beta amyloid, the tau, these don't reverse easily once they reach critical levels. The neuroinflammation that drives cognitive decline doesn't simply resolve on its own once it becomes entrenched. This is not meant to frighten you without purpose. This is meant to make clear that the time to act and support your brain is before things become irreversible. And that time, for most people watching this, is right now. The people who began taking their brain health seriously at the first signs, who didn't dismiss the fog, who didn't wait for a formal diagnosis to begin giving their brain the support it needed. They are in a very different place today than those who waited. That is not speculation. That is what I observe. That is what the science increasingly confirms. That early, consistent, natural support for the brain's maintenance systems makes a meaningful difference in the trajectory of cognitive aging. Below this video, and in the first comment, you will find information about the natural support I have been referring to throughout this conversation. I want you to read it. I want you to take it seriously. Because your brain, right now at this moment, is either being supported or it is slowly losing ground. There is no neutral. There is no standing still. The window to act while your brain can still fully respond is open right now. I don't know how long it stays open for each individual. Neither do you. But I know that of all the things I could tell you to do today, giving your brain the support it needs, natural, evidence-informed, proactive support, is the one that your future self will thank you for most. Look below, read everything carefully, and take the first step before you close this page. Your brain has been waiting for you to pay attention. Today, you finally did.